Hello, welcome back. Sorry about the technical difficulties, but as I said, this is new software to me. I've never done a reaction video. I realized that for about 20 minutes after I had switched the tabs to talk about the crisis workers being available on set. After I switched the tab so it was on my face, I actually forgot to switch the tab back. So on the recorded video, you could see both my reaction and the video. So I ended up with about 20 minutes of video that was just my face, and no one wants to see that. So I had to go back and edit that out. So actually, it turned out not to be a bad thing because it's a long documentary. I'm sure it's very thorough. Um, but it's probably better for me to just break it up in individual sections anyway, so that people can just watch it, maybe a half hour or 45 minutes at a time. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it that way moving forward. Having said that, I also caught that I was saying, I think Miley Kunis in the first video. I meant to say, I believe it's Mila Kunis, and correct me again if I'm saying that wrong, but Mila Kunis. But again, I might do some reaction videos on that content as well. But for now, let's get back into part 2 of the documentary. I have it pretty much set up to start right where I left off. So let's go ahead and get into it. See if I can. Oh, there we go. All right, getting better.
So if we need to stop, if we need to take a break, whatever it is, just let me know and we can do that. Okay. We just want to make sure that while we're getting the open, honest answers and telling your story, we're also doing it in a healthy way that's not going to trigger you.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm nervous. I'm nervous. I'm going to be as transparent as I can. And I mean that. It does feel like a hurricane is in my chest right now. So I'm not afraid to face things and to speak from the heart.
Here are the facts that I have in front of me when Joshua first reached out to me. John Silvestri had accused him of harmful behavior. And regardless of how exaggerated and often false John Silvestri's allegations turned out to be, Josh himself had contributed to the culture of Colleen Ballinger's world in troubling ways.
Obviously, there are allegations that have been levied against you, and we're going to get into those, but you have also alleged that you are a victim as well. And that's something that I and my team take very seriously. Beyond that, you were the only adult during the whole Colleen era and all of that is speaking. And I think that is also very important in this conversation.
I kind of expected it to be different. I didn't think I'd be the only one. To me, it's just weird that I'm the only one talking.
Who are these other people who would be talking? I mean, as I said, I didn't grow up with Miranda Sings. I wasn't watching Miranda Sings all the time, but I am very curious as to what other people he thought would be coming forward. What would they be saying? I don't know. I find that curious.
But it makes sense as well, because if you choose to have an opinion or a stance, then that means people are going to be able to criticize you and look into you. And I understood that going into it, but I also thought there was something more important than just how I was being perceived when I started to see the true effects that had happened on these young adults. So here I am. The criticisms keep rolling in, and it's hard. I'm used to not looking good for the last 7 years. I just hope that something between this conversation and your videos, I think part 1 and part 2 of your videos have already done a lot for the people that would consider themselves affected or victims. And maybe this will kind of help put a period to that sentence.
This is what I need to see here, the early days, because I was not around for any of this. So I'm curious to see what this is all about.
I was born in Macon, Georgia, to very conservative parents. I've always been drawn to entertainment. I was obsessed with anything like music related growing up. That led to being cast in
Whoa, look at that picture. Oh my God.
musicals in high school. And I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I had made videos since I was a kid. And then when YouTube came out and I was aware of it, I was aware of it back in 2008. And I would watch people like Smosh and Shay Carl.
Briefly tell me what your role is in this Colleen Ballinger story from your perspective.
Early on, it was I'm the boyfriend of this Miranda person. And then that kind of, it took hold when I proposed and I made a video out of it. And then it skyrocketed. It changed. And
I'm a little confused because I wasn't around at the beginning. Did he mean like he started on the Miranda Sings skits as her boyfriend and then it grew into a personal relationship? Or did he mean to say it started off as me being Colleen's boyfriend? I'm not sure. Like I said, I wasn't around for the skits, so I don't know.
then I had an audience. So then I definitely was perceived as like the boy next door, the guy that maybe you'll find a guy like Josh one day. And not to say that like I'm some great prize, but I knew how they were viewing me, and I tried to remain as authentic as I could. That evolved into now I'm the fiance. And look at all the things that he's doing. I wanted to put my heart into it. And there was a chunk that it felt perfect. Everything felt perfect. Then we got married. And when that happened, it just all kind of started going downhill.
This has the beginnings of what sounds like most, not to call him a trophy husband, but trophy wives. This is kind of like the story. It's all great in the beginning. It's like romance. They think the engagement's great, and then they get married and everything changes. So I feel like this is about to go very downhill, but I feel like we've all heard this story numerous times before with celebrities and celebrity spouses.
It became almost like they were watching a soap opera and trying to read between the lines. And I could feel that they were making comments about what's going on. It feels different. The sad part is it was different. I started to feel almost like a character, like a sitcom character, like I was replaceable.
Like a trophy wife.
One of the questions I would consistently get was, if you weren't married to her, what YouTuber would you want to be married to? And it always struck me odd, because I'm like, why would you even ask me that? Like, this is a real life. This is a real marriage. This is a real relationship. I don't sit here and think, well, if it's not her, which one would I want?
That is a really weird thing to ask someone. I mean, I don't think most people go out there looking for YouTubers to marry. So I agree with him that that's a really strange thing to ask somebody.
And so I
Yeah.
would address that on camera and be like, we're not sitcom characters. This is real. So I'm not going to answer that question. And to then have it evolve into real life, it did feel like I was swapped out. It did feel like I was replaced. And no one ever addressed that there's a new husband in the mix. I was there for 7 years and now I'm not. And everyone's okay with it. Maybe who I am and what I am has never had any value to them or even to myself. I am replaceable. That's a hard thing to swallow. When the public thinks that is one thing. When you feel like the person that you trusted most treated you like that, I mean, it crushed me. I mean, I was already an insecure person. I think most performers in a way are. We're always seeking some type of validation, some type of applause or good job.
He definitely sounds like someone who is emotionally and mentally abused. Not to laugh there. I I just I don't see him as an aggressive person. He definitely seems passive and like someone who went through a lot of abuse. So again, I'm so curious to see where he got painted out to be the villain in all this. I curious.
Um,
Well, let me ask you really quick. When you became the husband, that everything just kind of went downhill from there. And so, are you speaking specifically just about the fandom, or was it once you got married to Colleen, did the marriage also just seem to spiral downhill pretty quickly?
it was more about behind the scenes that things were changing, and I couldn't stop it from changing. And I tried over and over and over to get us back on track. And I think people can see between the lines to an extent.
Trouble in Paradise.
Much of the public knew that Josh and Colleen had dated from 2009 to 2015, and for the most part, they presented themselves as a happy, loving, carefree couple. But as we've learned time and again, what the public sees isn't always the reality of the relationship when the cameras are turned off.
Do you think, like, do you have a moment where you had a realization of now we're married and just something has changed? Was there some?
I don't think it was one single moment. Colleen and I always had a difficult relationship from the very beginning. It was very passionate and very explosive, but never truly consistent. And I was so infatuated that I just ignored the red flags and kept fighting for it, kept pushing to make things better. When you really love someone, you don't just let it go because it's hard. You adapt, you evolve, you compromise. I felt like I did that over and over and over.
So sometimes it's good to compromise in a healthy relationship, but sometimes, from what it sounds like he's saying and where this is headed, it just ends up being like a toxic relationship. I mean, there's a fine line between compromising and just ending up being a doormat.
The thing that changed really was when we got married, it kind of felt like any effort to meet me in the middle stopped. How dare I ask for something? How dare I say, could you maybe not film tonight and just sit and have dinner with me?
How sad does that sound? Again, this sounds like a story I think we've all heard before.
I tried to take us to couples therapy. She was very resistant. I was so down. I was so down. I don't mind talking about my feelings, obviously. She only went a handful of times, and I would always go, regardless if she would show up or not. And every single session, she didn't want to talk about her. It was always me, my problem, what I was doing wrong, what I needed to redirect in my brain. And it was infuriating and sad because it's just constantly just, you're wrong, not her, you're wrong.
I'm wondering, like, was the therapist also saying he was wrong? Because that sounds a little strange to me. He's the one showing up. He should have like a decent relationship with a therapist. Sure, he or she should still be impartial, but the therapist, uh, I don't, the therapist is supposed to mediate between the two of them. So I don't understand if Colleen's showing up in therapy and just blaming him for everything. Where was the mediation? That's what good therapy does. So, not sure what happened there.
What, like, when you say things like, she saying that you're wrong, what was that about? Just, was that about the content that you're making or how you were approaching the relationship? Or
I felt disrespected a lot in that relationship. There's a misconception out there that I was some controlling husband, boyfriend guy.
I really don't understand where that comes from because he comes off but nothing but quiet and passive in this interview. Like I said, I wasn't there for the prior years, so maybe I just don't have that history, but he doesn't look like a controlling person to me. looks can be deceiving.
that was not supportive of what she did. And it always bothered me because I always
Gross.
rooted for her. I went to so many shows, I participated in videos. Yes, it helped me out too, but I never once said, don't do this. Don't take that show. Don't tour right now. I never, ever guilted her for that. All I ever wanted was, hey, if you're going to do this, can you talk to me on the phone? And it
Ugh, how sad is that?
wasn't like, please talk to me for 2 hours a day. It was just normal. To me, it felt like a normal request. And that always evolved into difficult conversations, arguments that I didn't understand.
Ooh. Oh, look who we have. Oh, this is my other little buddy. Oh, wait. Oh, this is my other little buddy. He doesn't want to be on camera. But this is my big guy. He's the big boy, huh? You're the big boy. You're the big brother. Yes, he is. Sorry, he just like stopped by. The kitties come and go as they please. There's only 2 of them, but aw, I just thought I'd show him while he's here. Hi. Gonna watch the video with me? Okay. All right. Sorry about that. We'll get back to the video. Ooh, I'll remember to switch the tabs this time. All right. I'm making progress. I'm learning.
That I was selfish, that I have expectations that are unreasonable. And I started to believe all of that. But in retrospect, I wasn't asking for anything major other than a normal, what I would view as a normal kind of relationship with the person that you've been with for 7 years. And there were other times that I just thought, I thought she was really rude. There was a lot of times where on her tours, the amount of times I had to apologize to the tech crew.
Okay, that's another thing there that just sounds like an abusive relationship. How many of us have heard about that where, there's one partner apologizing for another because the other person's just toxic. So the other person ends up apologizing for them. I mean, that's just a toxic dynamic. No one should have to be apologizing for anybody. No one should be being rude to people. That's just interesting.
And the people running the event, because of how rude she was to them, almost like, I'm a queen, don't talk to me, talk to my assistant. And I would look at that and go, what are you doing? They're here it's their job. The least you could do is like give them eye contact and respond. She was just so either abrasive or just didn't care. Mm-hmm. And I could see it in the faces of the crew. And time again, at least 7 or 8 times, I said, I'm so sorry. She's having a rough week.
I really don't respect people who just don't treat anyone with common decency. Like, I don't care if you're a janitor. I don't care if you're a CEO. I mean, you just have to treat people with common decency. And I think it says a lot about a person whenever they don't act that way.
Not anything about you. And I would try to make excuses because I didn't want her to look bad. And then I would try to talk to her about it. And then it was me being wrong again. I don't know. I don't know what she thought I was expecting her to be. But anytime I thought, wow, I wouldn't have spoken to them that way.
So on June 30th, 2023, the LA Times ran an article about the Colleen Ballinger saga, about Joshua David Evans opening up for the first time in years in response to Colleen's ukulele response video. This article cited a tweet of Joshua's, which said, quote, "I was gaslit too." This was one of the first times a major press publication had ever discussed Joshua's own allegations against Colleen Ballinger. And here he was able to open up about it for the first time with anybody publicly.
Yeah, I just felt like whatever truth I thought was there, she denied that truth and made me feel crazy about it. Or how she would talk about fans, or what she would say about all the gifts that they brought. There was just...
People were bringing her gifts. Like, I just think that's rude too. If she's like sitting there talking about her fans, which has basically made her millions and millions of dollars, And if they're bringing her gifts, most of her fans were minors. I mean, I guess there were some adults, but these kids were probably spending their allowances on gifts to give to her, and she's gonna sit and make fun of them. Again, it's not really a quality that I respect in people, but keep listening.
Just so many moments where I thought, that's gross.
Would she talk negatively about fans
I love that. That's gross. Yeah, that's
to you behind the scenes? Was that something that happened or happened often?
I don't want to paint a picture like she was just this monster that just spewed hate toward.
They never are, and that's what makes it so complicated, because they're never just evil all the time, or it would be easy to leave, but there's always those sprinkles of kindness in there, sprinkles of, just having a good personality, just enough to keep people to stay. That's always the way.
Towards her fans, because she quote loves her fans. I have a different interpretation of what love means to her, but there were a lot of times where she would talk negatively or make fun of someone or joke about what she was going to do with all the gifts on the tour bus. And I just thought to myself, I would never talk like that. These people are giving us a job.
Well, I'm curious, because you just said that you have a different definition of love than she did. And I'm curious, like, what you mean by that, if you could just elaborate more on that.
She says she loves her fans. When you love something, there's a part of you that's selfless, or that's truthful, or that's just kind. And I didn't see a lot of that. And to me, it felt like she didn't really love them as people. She loved what they provided for her.
I think that's the key there, and that's probably, it's probably why teenagers shouldn't be idolizing adults, because they don't understand that. Like, that's just a job to that person. Like, a lot of celebrities, some of them can be narcissists. Like, they don't love you as a fan. They love the attention. They love the validation, just like Josh was talking about earlier. He was saying that, he was a performer and he loved the validation. And for him, that could come from a very self-conscious place. Like, he just needed the validation. And when you're dealing with young teenagers, they don't necessarily understand those nuances. And it's unfortunate, because then, that's what leads to this whole thing with all these chat rooms and things, because teenagers don't have boundaries, but 30-year-olds should definitely have boundaries. 18-year-olds should learn that they need to have boundaries.
She loved the attention. She loved the status. She loved, like, it gave her a thrill and she loved it. But do I think she truly loved her fans? I never really felt like she did. I think she just loved what it gave her. And one of the biggest times we had a fight was because of her fans. We were doing the Josh and Colleen tour. We had a husband-wife tour. And
what year was this? Do you remember?
January of 2016.
You guys ready for this or what?
Anytime, like, I had the mic and it was both of us on stage, and we both had different things we would do, and then we did stuff together. But when we would interact and I felt like I was ad-libbing a little bit and improving, I could tell when she did not want me to keep talking. She gave me a look on stage while I was doing it, because I had gone on for like 30, 45 seconds longer than we normally do about a bit. And on mic, I said, "Oh, I know that look. She wants me to shut up, guys."
Uh-oh. We all know this from previous stories. This isn't going to go over well at all.
We went on, we finished the show. I got onto the tour bus first. When she came on the bus, I had never seen her so livid with me. Some of the eye contact that you saw in the ukulele video, kind of that a darkness in her eyes.
Yeah, there's been a lot of comments on people's perception of her look there.
I saw it all the time, especially in that moment. And she came in, and she's not really one to yell at me. She wasn't like that. If anything, she just completely ignored me. But
How sad of a statement is that? She wasn't one to really yell at me. She would just ignore me. Like, some people would argue that just being ignored is worse. You shouldn't be yelling at people either, but at least you're engaging with them. At least you're talking to them. I mean, they're both really negative, toxic things, but it's just sad what he's saying.
this time she yelled, and she was like, "How dare you make me look bad in front of my fans? How dare you do that?" And I was sitting there thinking, what? I don't think I really made you look bad. I made a joke. It's like a husband-wife thing. Well, honey doesn't want me talking. Here I go again. But I was being honest too on stage. And in that moment, I realized she cares way more about how she is.
Is this the actual footage? Look, like, wow. Look at her face right there. That is someone who looks pretty ticked off, if you ask me. She's going for messing with the hair, like, that's interesting. Look at him right there. His eyes are kind of like looking at her because he's like talking. And I feel like he's giving the side eye, like, I know what's coming.
Is perceived than what the truth actually is. I got it. She let me have it. It was scary. I mean, it was scary because I'd never seen her really look at me that intensely before.
I think it's interesting that you said I'm assuming you were paraphrasing, but if she was saying something like, "How dare you do that in front of my fans," when it was a tour for the two of you, the idea behind that would be that it would be your shared fans. I was curious, if you felt like there was animosity or competition. Were there moments where it was just mutually supportive, or was it more of a one-sided thing, like these are my fans? Or can you walk me through that? Like how?
Okay, I'm just gonna go ahead and take a stab in the dark here, but I'm going to assume that Colleen never thought of them as their fans, that they were definitely her fans. I don't really think that she thought that he was an equal partner or they had equal fans.
What was that like, having a relationship and you guys both creating together and separately in your own right?
I always felt like, well, because she made it obvious with her words and actions that they were her fans. They were
Bingo!
not mine. And when we decided to do a tour together as husband and wife, I thought, wow, she's really like looking at me like an equal. And it
Aw.
meant the world to me.
This is so sad.
I didn't want to be bigger than her, but the fact that it felt like it's 50-50. Wow, I've never felt 50-50 with her before.
That's sad.
And then she was very adamant about doing Miranda on the husband-wife tour. And I didn't understand that. Why do you need to do Miranda when it's billed as us? If you bring Miranda in it, it's just a Miranda show with us. That was one of the times that she did go to therapy with me, and the therapist sided with her.
Again, I'm curious about what kind of therapist this is. I mean, I'm not saying maybe they actually thought that Josh was being controlling at the time. Maybe he was. Maybe he's just a different person now, and I'm just getting a different vibe from him. But I'm trying to imagine you're in therapy and you're having an argument with your partner, and the therapist just sides with your partner. It's just interesting to me, especially since he said he was the one who was usually going to see the therapist. So then on one of the rare occasions when Colleen actually does come in, the therapist sides with Colleen. I just think that's strange.
Why would you not allow her? Why would you have a problem with her doing that? And it made me feel like I was being controlling. And I didn't look at it as like trying to control her. I just thought, if we're really doing 50-50, why would you whip out this massive character? If I spoke up and said, I don't see why you're pulling that out. She just didn't understand. And she thought, you controlling, how dare you? This is what brought us here. This is what got us this tour.
We've seen evidence of her, making those types of claims to her fans. I'm curious, was that something that she said directly to you?
She might not have said the word but she alluded to it countless times. There was one time where I was on my own tour and she was in Canada filming her show. And she just avoided talking to me for days. And we're married at this point. There was one time, I remember I was about to perform. I had an hour before the show and I went back to my hotel room and I finally got her on the phone. And all of this pain and like feelings of being disregarded kind of came to the surface. And I really just kind of let it out on the phone. Was I yelling at her? No, but I was very passionate in the way I talked, very upset. And what she told me days later is, I saw Eric, which is her husband now, right after I got off that phone call with you. And I told him, oh, well, I just got yelled at by my husband for 15 minutes.
Was that something that you felt was happening often, that she would go to him and share details of your relationship?
First of all, there's just kind of like a lot there. Like, so, I mean, I guess they weren't fighting before the phone call, but I mean, even if I'm with a boyfriend, I generally talk to them every day. If I'm not talking to them, at least I'm texting them every day. But it's genuinely pretty strange when you have people in your life that you care about that you don't touch base at least once a day. I mean, text, phone call, whatever you want to do. And then, that's definitely like a toxic thing to be like, "Oh, we had a fight, so I went and talked to somebody else." Like, that's not cool. That's yeah. I feel bad for this guy.
I don't know if she thought I was blind, but I saw it from the beginning when she cast him. I remember all the other people that went through the cycle of that audition circuit. That character was supposed to be not conventionally like a good-looking guy. And when she started, wanting him, I thought he's kind of a good-looking dude.
I'll keep my mouth shut on that one, but I would definitely Josh would win that contest in my mind. That's all I'm gonna say. So
You want him to play this character that's supposed to be like the male Miranda? And I thought, I can't say anything. She's gonna think I'm jealous. She's gonna think I'm controlling.
He should have trusted his gut. Should have trusted his gut. She was already gaslighting him though, so he was already editing himself. He was already like just doubting himself and editing himself, and that's just another trait of like a toxic relationship. She didn't even have to berate him. He was just already doing it ahead of her.
I did bring up, that's odd that you're pushing for him when he's conventionally a good-looking guy.
Now, the person Joshua is talking about is actor Eric Stocklin, somebody we've mentioned often in this series, but haven't covered anywhere near as much as Colleen or most of her inner circle. Now, Eric Stocklin is an actor who, during the early 2010s, popped up in smaller roles in shows like The Vampire Diaries, Bones, and Criminal Minds before he got his big break, and a starring role on a Netflix show called Haters Back Off. What you might not know is that while
Okay, he's not a bad-looking guy, but still, sorry, Josh and those baby blues. Yeah, he doesn't just doesn't compare. But all right, he's not a bad-looking guy. I'm not trying to be like rude. I just, he kind of he's like a cute nerdy little guy.
While she was working on this show's first season, she was married to Joshua David Evans. 2 weeks before that season came out, on October 14th, 2016, Colleen announced her divorce from Joshua, and less than 2 years after that, Colleen Ballinger got married again to her Haters Back Off co-star, Eric Stocklin.
There were just a lot of times that I knew she was hanging out with him. I knew that he had been over to her apartment in Canada, or that she went over to his place and, quote, everyone was there.
No, we've all been there. Oh, I feel bad for this guy. We've all been there. Actually, no, I haven't, because I've never been married to someone, and I would like to think that that wouldn't happen if I was married to someone. But dating people, that's happened. That shouldn't happen when you're married.
Hard to talk about. There was a time right before the divorce happened, and it was VidCon, and she didn't stay at VidCon very long. She at that point kind of thought I'm bigger and better than this. Well, I loved it, but she left and went back to our house that we had. Someone communicated and relayed to me, hey, while you're out at VidCon, she's having a few people over to the house. And I was like, who? And they said, Eric, Corey, and a romantic interest, and Rachel and her boyfriend at the time. And I just thought it was weird. And so I was supposed to spend the night that night near VidCon because it was a long drive.
Mm-hmm.
Something in my gut said, no, go back home. So I finished the show. I didn't tell her, and I got in the car and I drove back. She kept messaging me like, are you in your hotel room? Where are you? Where are you? And within the last probably 15 minutes or so of the drive, I came clean and I said, I'm actually almost home. And when I walked through those doors, it reeked.
Oh man, why did he tell her? You're like 15 minutes away. You've already made it that far. It's like you might as well just go the long haul and just surprise her and see what happens. But I'm also really excited because I do remember seeing the preview for this, and I'm waiting for the moment. And I know you've all seen it too, and I'm not going to mean to laugh, but it's going to be funny. Oh.
Reeked of alcohol and cigarettes, and no one was there. Nobody was there. And then I went upstairs, and she was sitting on our bed.
Look, even he has that smile on his face. He knows what he's about to say. Oh my gosh.
Playing her ukulele.
There it is. I don't know how Swoop kept a straight face. Playing her ukulele, like, is that her go-to apology instrument? Like, when she knows that she's done something wrong, like, just gonna pick up that ukulele. Whew.
I could tell she had some drinks in her. No big deal. Have a drink. It's your house.
Mm-hmm.
She smelled of smoke, and I was like, what's going on? Where is everybody? Oh, they had to go. They had to leave. And I just thought, just the red flags were popping off in my head. Like, why would you have everyone leave when you knew I was showing up? Unless you didn't want me to be around it. But the final words I said to her face, the last thing I ever said to her face, as I was leaving, I turned to her and I said, when you're effing Eric in our bed, I want you to think of me. And I said it right to her face, eyes locked. And her response was, it's not like that. He has a girlfriend. And then what was exposed very soon after was that they had started a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
It sucks. That's the last thing I said to her.
That's like, if you have not said anything to her.
She threatened me a few months later through text that if I continued to talk about her in any way, shape, or form, is what she said. If you mention me in any way, I'm going to get lawyers on you. And my response to that was her branded slogan. All I said was spread happiness.
That's okay. So that whole thing was like horrible. So that was kind of funny, like spread happiness. But geez, I can't imagine. I'm glad he finally stood up for himself, but I wouldn't have had the ability to just, give that kind of like one liner, like, hey, when you're effing that person, I hope you're thinking of me, and just to walk out. Like, that's a great like mic drop moment. But I always know, like, I always come back after those great mic drop moments. So good for him that he didn't go back. And it kind of sounds like, he took a lot of abuse to the relationship. So that can be hard to do for somebody to just walk away like that. But kudos to him. I don't know. I'm still waiting to see what exactly he did in all this that makes him seem like a bad guy. There's really nothing going on that I am seeing that makes him seem like a bad guy.
And that wasn't the last thing I wrote to her, with a little sunflower, because that's what she always used.
Oh no, commercial.
Let's play.
I know. I just don't have premium. Like, what can I say? Oh, another one. I do use Instacart though, so. Okay.
On September 1st, 2023, Joshua and I hopped on Zoom for a few more questions I had for him. Namely, I wanted to get his reaction to what happened in part 3 of my Colleen docuseries, but I also wanted to get him to elaborate further on a few topics that he brushed on during our main interview. Even though that was 7 hours long, there were things I wanted more context on. So whenever you see this switch over to Zoom, that interview took place after the truth about John Silvestri came to light.
I was always uncomfortable with.
I'm not trying to be superficial, but this is definitely, I think, a better look for him as far as the hairstyle goes. I mean, I still thought he was cute even with the long hair on the side, but I think this is a much better look. Kudos to Josh.
With Eric and her relationship. Anytime I had an inkling, do you have a thing for that person? It only happened like 3 or 4 times, but every single time I had an inkling, it happened.
Sorry, when you say it happened, are you saying that she had cheated multiple times, like with different people, or?
In the first 3 months of us dating, I had this weird feeling in my gut that we were exclusive. We were saying, I love you. It was this whirlwind romance. I had this feeling in my gut that something wasn't right. I didn't know what it was. And I did a foul thing. She walked out. She was doing something. She left the apartment. And I pulled up the laptop that she was on. And I read some Facebook private messages that she had been sending. And it broke my heart. I caught her sending back and forth messages to a guy that I had already brought up. Hey, who is this guy? And why is he saying this kind of stuff to you? Like, I don't think that's appropriate. And she would always be like, oh no, he's gay, or he's not into me. What?
The gaslighting, but still, it's not really okay to go through someone's things, but at the same time, again, I think a lot of us have been there too. I know I have, so I can't really throw stones, but it's just sounding like toxic all around. Plus, I mean, this is my thing though. Once a cheater, always a cheater. You just have to go. If they've I mean, kudos to people if they can work through it, but I just think that's a deal breaker.
I found was that in those messages, she was saying exactly to him what she had said to me when we were first starting to date and get to know each other. She was using the same catchphrases, the same, you're the best in the West.
Oh, ouch, jeez.
That sticks out to me because she used to say that about me, and she said it to him, and I could.
Also, though, that's like a really, that's her game. That's like what she does to try to get guys. You're the best in the West. Like, what is that? How does she get all these guys?
Confronted her about it. The next day, I was still upset. And I remember her saying, if this is how you're going to be, if you're not over this now, then I can't be in a relationship with you, period. If you're still going to be upset. And
he should have just walked then. If someone says stuff like that, he should have just walked anyway. He had the evidence.
I thought to myself, but I'm upset because I caught you talking to another guy, all lovey-dovey, all sweet. Now you're upset with me for still being upset 24 hours later. But in that moment, it taught me if I speak up about something that I caught that I didn't think was right, her response is, then I'm out.
Oh, that's like such a, that's something that's it's such a toxic trait when someone comes to you and they said, I've caught you doing this, and then they throw something back in your face and they're like, wow, you did this or you did that, or if you can't get over this, then I'm leaving. It's just a really just toxic trait. It's kind of like they one up you. It's like, well, I caught you doing this, and it's just kind of like, all right, then if you can't get over it, then I'm just gonna leave. It's just not healthy.
I'm gone. 2 months later, Swoop, the same thing happened.
With a different person?
No, same person. He was saying, I'm so sorry. If I got you in trouble with your boyfriend, I'm so sorry. And she said, please don't apologize. Do not apologize. We can keep doing this as long as my boyfriend doesn't know about it. I have no problem with this. I should have known because she showed me who she was so early on.
I mean, he kinda said it right there. I mean, it was once and then it happened again, so but I also have questions there. Does that mean he went through her phone again? Did he just continue going through her
It
phone?
left a mark that never went away.
How did that make you feel through all of the years that you were together?
I don't think this now because I've worked with a therapist. I thought it was my fault. The whole time I thought I did something to deserve this. Here's this amazing person. She has presented this amazing thing to me. It's my fault. I need to change how I view these things. I need to change. The biggest time she gave me an ultimatum was she just said nonchalantly, if you don't propose to me within a year, I'm done. And for
Ugh, the ultimatums, the people and their ultimatums. Uh, Jeez. I think the only thing wrong with him, I mean, he was blaming himself. The only thing he should have done was just trust himself a little bit more and trust his gut and have the confidence to walk away. But he didn't. We've all been there.
for me, I was like, I wish you didn't say that because I just, in my own self, got to that point. I just found that. And now you're giving me an ultimatum. Just feels icky, feels gross.
Throughout the course of your relationship, do you feel like she would make posts or remarks publicly that were targeted at you?
I think she would post things knowing that I had verbally said that makes me uncomfortable. Hey, I saw on your Insta story, like, you're really flirting really heavy with your director for your Netflix show. Like, it's there for everyone to see. It's blatant flirtation. And then that would turn into me being controlling when I'm just sitting here going, you're not just like having fun. You're flirting and chasing this man down. The comments are saying that you're flirting. She knew the things that didn't make me feel great, and she would do them anyway. She's her own person. She can do whatever she wants.
Why do you think she would do those things that knowing that it made you uncomfortable?
I think maybe she resented me.
Like, what would lead you to think she might have resented you?
She just didn't act like she liked me.
I'm wondering, because I feel like this is a little bit of the same approach that she took with Johnny, and I'm wondering if, like, there's a setup for something coming, like, why, like, she's asking her questions like she does, so I'm wondering if we're about to get swooped.
She wasn't kind. She didn't make me feel seen. She didn't make me feel like I mattered. I didn't feel like I was in a relationship for the majority of the time. I felt like a shell. It would drive me crazy because people in the comments would notice, which made me feel even more embarrassed and more small.
According to Joshua, the last time he spoke with Colleen, she threatened him with legal action if he ever spoke about her or their relationship. He rarely directly spoke her name. However, Joshua did try to speak out a few times.
There was a common narrative that was kind of spread around you and Colleen at the time of the divorce, where people were saying that you just remained silent, which isn't entirely true.
I have held my tongue for years, 2 or 3 years. I've held my tongue more than you know, and it's killing me. I'm just going to tell the truth. I want to tell you about my life, and I want to tell you about what really happened, and it might piss off a lot of people. It might piss off the subscribers, and it might piss off Colleen. It might piss off people in my family.
So I'm curious because you haven't shared much about your relationship. Why now are you sharing this?
This is the very first time in 6 or 7 years after it happened where I feel like if I were to say something, I'm not going to be attacked by hundreds of thousands of teenagers.
Right.
Now, when Colleen and Joshua got divorced, Joshua was almost immediately met with constant daily attacks in comments and in his DMs, as well as on gossip websites like Gossip Garden and Gossip Bakery. It's been rumored for years that Joshua, in response to the constant harassment, became obsessed with what people were saying about his divorce and began not so subtly trolling the gossip blogs for information. There are some interesting allegations relating to Joshua's mindset from this time period that we discovered after the initial interview, so I decided to ask him directly about it. We have seen a relationship that you had of sorts with a site called Gossip Garden and Gossip Bakery. These both ring a bell?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, look at that face right there. What's about to happen? You can see the shame, the head going down. Yeah, here it comes.
Okay.
Yes, they do.
There have been rumors for years that you were allegedly prowling these gossip sites, trying to get information about your relationship or your divorce with Colleen.
There were rumors going around that I had done bad things or that I cheated on her. And I was so upset by it that I would spend so much time searching, where is this coming from? Who's saying this? I'd get sent links. Hey, did you see this? Did you see this is being said about you? And I would hop on. I sure as hell would go look and see what was going on and what they were saying. Still feeling like I don't have a voice. I'm just watching, hoping that someone is going to see between the lines and see that a lot of what's being said isn't true. But yeah, I spent a lot of time. It was not good for my mental health because anytime I'd get something about me, I was fixated on it because I was getting so much hate from everywhere.
We've seen, some tweets and things that you may have been speaking in code on Twitter.
I mean, sure. There was a time where they were like, we think he's lurking. We think he is reading some of these posts.
All right, so this is interesting. I mean, but I think, that's also toxic too when you break up with someone and you're just kind of still obsessed with them, or you're still obsessed with the breakup, or you haven't gotten over it and you're still trying to get information. It's a little interesting here where they're talking about him talking in code and lurking and whatever else he was doing. So, there's a lot of time left in this documentary. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go because it seemed like they could have just wrapped that up there, honestly, but there's a couple hours left. So I'm curious to see where this is going to go.
Josh, if you're reading this, post a picture of X. At the time, especially because this is when I was drinking very heavily alone. There was like
Oh, that is, yeah. Drinking alone with the internet combined with the divorce. Never a good combination.
2 times that I literally did the thing that they asked me to do. But if you were on that page, you knew exactly oh gosh, Josh is here. He is watching.
There was also a rumor that you may have been posting to these sites posing as your aunt.
No, I was not. I would put money on the fact that it probably was my aunt.
Have you ever talked to your aunt?
No, I never spoke to her about it. I have not had a conversation with any family member or friend about go to this site and say this type of thing.
I feel like I would not be surprised if Swoop turns around 5 seconds from now and is like, and here's Josh's aunt. So I'm curious to see what's going to happen.
That never happened. There was a period within the first 6 months of everything happening. It was chaos and people were saying that I cheated, which I did not, or that I was not. One of my friends at the time, and I'm no longer close with this person, was adamant. You got to go in there. You got to create names. You got to create whoever you want to be and go drop the truth because this narrative is going to continue. It's going to continue and you won't have a way to fight against it. And, for a while I would sit there and really think about it. But then I thought there's no way I could get away with that. It was something that had crossed my mind many, 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 many times. If I'm being really honest with you, it doesn't make me look good. I wanted to create an account. I wanted to, especially like when I saw the evolution, when there's someone like an Ask Me Anything on Reddit that has been verified as someone in my life, and they have gone on to say things about me that I'm like, that's not true. And who are you? You're not getting the facts right, but they're accepting it as truth. That AMA sent me to a dark, dark place because what they were saying wasn't true about me. So now I don't have a voice, and if I even tried to have a voice, they'll be like, you're just trying to catch up from other people that got there first.
Oh,
Right now, take advantage of a limited time offer on Disney Plus.
This is that. Oh,
whether you're starting up
an hour
or scaling up,
let me see what
work
this is
happens
again.
everywhere. With Shop.
Okay, Miranda's screams. So that's interesting. Also seems like a good place for me to take a break here and upload this part 2. Okay, and I'll be picking back up with Miranda Screams in part 3, I guess is what this will be. Okay.